In the heart of Manchester, a talented engineer named David Thompson sat at his desk, ideas flowing through his mind like a river. For 5 years, he'd worked at Harrison Tech Solutions, building the software that powered half the company's revenue. His fingers danced across the keyboard as he designed innovative solutions that saved the company thousands of pounds each month. The morning meetings always started the same way. David would present his ideas with passion and detail. This Tuesday was no different. If we implement this cloud integration system, we could cut processing time by 40%, David explained, showing charts and diagrams he'd prepared the night before. The room fell silent for a moment. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. David, that idea about the cloud integration is nice, but we'll stick with Thompson's approach, he said, nodding to Richard Thompson, another engineer who had joined the company just 6 months ago. David felt his stomach drop. That was his idea Thompson had just presented 5 minutes earlier, but he smiled politely and nodded. It happened often enough that the hurt had become familiar. Monday through Friday, David arrived early and left late. He reviewed code, fixed bugs, and created new features. His colleagues would ask for help, and he would give it freely. But when credit was due, his name rarely appeared on the reports. The morning sun would find him at his desk. The evening moon would see him still working. At lunch, the team gathered at their usual table in the company cafeteria. David approached with his sandwich and water bottle, looking forward to hearing about the new projects. As he got closer, he heard Lisa Roberts, the manager, speaking to the group. "Oh, David, you probably need to get back to work," she said quickly, glancing at her watch. "We're just heading to that exclusive networking event at the Grand Hotel." The group stood up together, leaving their trays behind. They had forgotten to invite him. Again. David watched them walk away, their laughter echoing through the cafeteria. He sat alone at the empty table, eating his sandwich in silence. The cheese tasted like cardboard, and the bread stuck in his throat. He tried to focus on his work, telling himself it didn't matter, but deep down it did. The weeks turned into months, and nothing changed. Projects succeeded because of David's work, but others took the praise. Meetings happened without him. Decisions were made in his absence. He would find out later, through casual conversations or forwarded emails marked as afterthoughts. When promotion time came, David's heart raced with hope. His performance reviews were perfect, marked with phrases like exceptional technical skills and crucial to team success. He had led every major project that year, solving problems that had stumped others for months. His desk drawer held a special folder with thank you notes from clients, specifically mentioning his help. The announcement came during the Friday afternoon meeting. Everyone gathered in the conference room, excitement filling the air. David smoothed his tie and straightened his jacket. He had prepared a speech just in case, folded neatly in his pocket. "After careful consideration, we're pleased to announce that Richard Peters will be our new senior engineer," Mr. Harrison declared. The room erupted in applause. Richard stood up, grinning widely, accepting congratulations from everyone. David clapped too, his hands moving automatically while his mind struggled to process what had happened. His heart seemed to stop for a moment, then started beating too. Fast. After the meeting, David approached HR. His voice shook slightly as he spoke. "I don't understand. I've led every major project this year. My evaluations were excellent. What happened?" Jennifer Walsh, the HR director, shifted in her chair. She avoided his eyes as she spoke. "David, you're a talented programmer. Don't get me wrong, but we're looking for someone who fits our company culture better." The words echoed in his mind. Company culture. What did that mean? He worked harder than most, helped everyone, never complained. What part of the culture was he missing? That night, David stood in his bathroom, looking at his reflection in the mirror. Dark circles under his eyes showed the countless late nights he'd spent perfecting projects. His tie hung loose around his neck, the same one he'd worn for the promotion announcement. "What does fitting in mean if I give my best every day?" he whispered to himself. The mirror had no answer. Weekend came and went in a blur. David tried to enjoy time with his family, but his mind kept returning to work. He wondered what he had done wrong, what he could do differently. Monday morning, David arrived early as usual. He made coffee and settled at his desk, ready to prove himself once more. But at 9 o'clock sharp, his computer pinged with a new email. The subject line read, "Important Company Update." His hands trembled as he opened it. 5 simple sentences. That changed everything. Dear David Thompson, due to restructuring, your position has been eliminated. Your last day will be today. Please return all company property to HR. Thank you for your service. By noon, David walked out of Harrison Tech Solutions for the last time. He carried only a small box containing a coffee mug, a picture of his family, and a few personal items. His heart felt heavier than the box. 5 years of his life, countless hours of work, all ending with those 9 words. Due to restructuring, your position has been eliminated. The 3 months had passed since David Thompson lost his job. The days blended together like watercolors in the rain. Each morning he woke before dawn and opened his laptop, searching for new positions. His fingers moved across the keyboard, clicking on job posting after job posting, filling out applications that disappeared into the digital void. Bills piled up like fallen autumn leaves. The red final notice stamps multiplied on their kitchen counter. David's wife, Emma, worked double shifts as a nurse at Manchester General Hospital. She would leave before the sun rose and return long after it set, her scrubs smelling of antiseptic and exhaustion. The children knew something was wrong, though their parents tried hard to hide it. Every evening, 8-year-old Katie and 10-year-old James Jr. heard their parents whispering in the kitchen. The words were hushed, but the worry in those whispers was loud enough to wake them from their dreams. They learned to pretend they were asleep when their parents talked about money. One particularly cold morning in January, frost covered the windows like delicate spiderwebs. Katie came downstairs in her pajamas, shivering. "Daddy, why isn't the heating on anymore?" she asked, wrapping her small arms around herself. David felt his heart break a little. He walked over to his daughter and wrapped her in an extra blanket from the sofa. "We're saving energy, sweetheart," he told her, forcing a smile. "It's like an adventure being warm pirates on our own ship." He made the blanket into a cape and twirled her around the living room until she giggled, but the pretending grew harder each day. That afternoon, while Katie and James Jr. were at school, David opened another letter. The envelope was crisp and official looking. He tore it open with trembling fingers, already knowing what it would say. "Dear Mr. Thompson, thank you for your interest in the systems engineer position. However, we have decided to pursue other candidates who are a better fit for our team dynamics." Better fit for team dynamics. Those words again. David crumpled the letter into a tight ball. He threw it across their small kitchen, where it landed next to 2 other rejection letters from that week alone. He slumped into a chair and put his head in his hands. 27 applications, 27 rejections, each one with similar phrases. Not quite what we're looking for, seeking someone with different experience, going in another direction. Never directly saying what everyone seemed to be thinking but wouldn't admit. Emma found him like that when she came home from her shift. His shoulders shook silently, tears dripping through his fingers onto the worn kitchen table. She set down her grocery bags quietly and moved to sit beside him. "What if I'm not good enough?" David finally spoke, his voice breaking. "What if they're right? What if I really don't fit anywhere?" Emma reached across the table and took his hands in hers. They were calloused from years of nursing, strong from carrying others' burdens. "David Thompson," she said firmly, her voice steady as the North Star. "You're the smartest person I know. You built software that made millions for that company. You're the one who helped our neighbor fix his computer last month. You're the one who taught James Jr. how to code his first game." She lifted his chin until their eyes met. "They're the ones with the problem, not you, and we'll prove it." That night David slept fitfully. His dreams took him to strange places. He saw himself in a bright, modern office. People of all backgrounds worked together, laughing and sharing ideas freely. He was explaining a new software system he had created. Everyone listened, nodded, asked questions. In the dream, he felt valued, heard, understood. When David woke, at 4 a.m., the dream's clarity stayed with him. He slipped out of bed quietly and went to the garage. In the corner, under a dusty tarp, sat an old workbench and some tools. But it was what he found in a forgotten box that changed everything. His old notebook from university days. The pages yellowed and dog-eared, filled with sketches and ideas. One section caught his attention. Design concepts for project management software that used artificial intelligence to predict problems before they happened. He had abandoned it when he joined Harrison Tech, thinking it was too ambitious. David sat cross-legged on the garage floor, flipping through the pages. What if I don't need to fit in, he thought, a spark of excitement igniting for the first time in months. What if I create my own space, my own rules? The next morning, Emma woke to find David already up, fresh coffee brewing. His eyes had a light she hadn't seen in months. I have an idea, he told her over breakfast. It's crazy, but... She smiled and squeezed his hand. The best ideas usually are. Together they made a plan. They had $3,000 in their emergency savings. Not much, but enough for a start. David converted their garage into a makeshift office. He moved boxes, swept cobwebs, and set up his old desk by the one window. Emma helped him paint the walls a bright white to combat the winter gloom. By the following week, David had established a routine. He woke at 5 a.m. each day, before the kids stirred. He would make coffee in their old thermos and work in the garage office, writing code line by line. The cold bit at his fingers, even through fingerless gloves, but he felt warmer than he had. In months, his old university notebook spread across the desk alongside scribblings on napkins and scraps of paper. The software was taking shape, pixel by pixel, function by function. The management system that could learn, predict, and adapt. Something no one had built before. Emma bought him an electric heater with her overtime pay. For the genius in the garage, she whispered, kissing his forehead one morning. The children learned to play quietly in the house, while Daddy worked on his big project that would, as he promised, help lots of people someday. And for the first time since being fired, David Thompson felt he was exactly where he belonged. The 6 months had crawled by like slow-moving glaciers. The garage office transformed from a cold, empty space into a warm hub of possibility. Cables snaked across the floor connecting David's equipment. Post-it notes covered one wall, each containing a piece of his grand vision. Early mornings found him writing code while the neighborhood slept, and the software prototype grew stronger. With each passing day, David's software worked brilliantly. He tested it relentlessly, pushing it to its limits. The artificial intelligence could predict project bottlenecks weeks before they happened. It could suggest solutions based on patterns from thousands of successful projects. Most importantly, it treated every team member's input equally, without bias or favoritism. One rainy Tuesday, David made the most important phone call of his life. Mary Johnson answered on the third ring. He had found her through online programming, forums where she had discussed being unfairly dismissed from her last job. Brilliant mind, impeccable code, but told she was too aggressive for suggesting improvements. Mary, I have something you need to see, David said. He explained his project, his vision. 3 days later, Mary stood in his garage, examining the code. Her eyes lit up. This is incredible, she said. You're actually building what everyone says can't be done. Robert Wilson joined next. He had traveled 3 hours from his small village in Yorkshire. For years he'd worked remotely for London companies, his talent overlooked simply because he refused to relocate. Cities aren't for everyone, he'd told them. His refusal cost him countless opportunities. In David's garage, Robert found something different. You want people for who they are, not where they live, he observed, setting up his laptop in the corner. His fingers flew across the keyboard with practiced ease. The third person to join was Patricia Green. At 58, she was told she was too old to understand modern design principles. Never mind that she had 30 years of experience creating interfaces people actually loved to use. Younger companies dismissed her wisdom, favoring fresh graduates instead. We're building something that includes everyone, David told them on their first official team day. Patricia nodded, already sketching interface designs on the garage's whiteboard. Emma brought them sandwiches for lunch, and the children drew pictures during coffee breaks. 8-year-old Katie liked to color the whiteboard edges, while James Jr. attempted to understand the code patterns. But as days turned to weeks, reality crept in. Money ran low again. Emma's nurse salary barely covered their living expenses. The software needed better servers. The team needed proper equipment. David's savings account showed 247s. "We need investors," Patricia suggested one evening, as they reviewed their progress. The software could change everything for project management, they all knew it, but brilliant ideas needed money to grow wings. David prepared a pitch deck. He practiced in front of the bathroom mirror. He reached out to venture capital firms in Manchester and London. 20 meetings were scheduled. 20 meetings that would determine their future. The first investor sat back in his leather chair, lips pursed. "Your team lacks experience," he noted, glancing at their resumes. "Where are the graduates from top universities? Where are the executives from established companies?" The second investor shook his head. "Your approach is too different. The market isn't ready for this kind of change." The third investor asked, "Why should we trust a team that previously couldn't even fit into established companies?" The rejections piled up like David's old rejection letters. By the 19th meeting, his confidence wavered. Emma found him staring at the ceiling one night. "Maybe they're right," he whispered. "Maybe I'm just fooling myself again." The 20th meeting was different from the start. Andrew Mitchell arrived 10 minutes early, walking with a slight limp. At 62, his hair was silver, his suit slightly wrinkled. He noticed Patricia's design sketches on the reception table and paused to appreciate them. "Elegant work," he said simply. Andrew Mitchell listened to their pitch differently. He asked questions about their personal stories. He wanted to know about the challenges they'd faced, not just their technical achievements. He nodded when Robert explained how remote work could revolutionize talent acquisition. He smiled when Mary demonstrated the bias-free evaluation system. "When I was 55, I started my first business," Andrew said finally. "Every bank, every investor told me I was too old, said the tech world belonged to younger minds." He chuckled. "Now I own stakes in 7 successful companies." He leaned forward, his eyes focused on each team member. "I face similar doors closing on me. I believe in second chances. More importantly, I believe in people who've been told no so many times they've learned how to create their own yes." Andrew Mitchell invested $50,000. It was exactly what they needed for better servers, proper development tools, and basic marketing. The team celebrated quietly that night with takeaway pizza in the garage. 3 weeks later, at 2:47 a.m., David saw the breakthrough. A Fortune 500 company had been testing his software. Their message appeared on his screen. "We've analyzed our data. Your system predicted our biggest project delay 3 weeks before it happened. This would have saved us $2.3 million. Orders began trickling in, small companies first, then medium-sized ones. Each success story brought another client. David's phone, which once brought only rejection, now rang with possibilities. The team expanded the garage office, setting up temporary walls and bringing in ergonomic chairs. Emma still brought sandwiches, but now they could afford premium coffee. The children's drawings evolved from simple pictures to amateur logos for Unity solutions. Late one night, as the team reviewed their growing client base, Patricia raised her coffee mug. "To being too different," she said. "To not fitting the mold," Robert added. "To second chances," Mary concluded. David smiled, remembering that day. He walked out of Harrison Tech with just a box of belongings. He hadn't known then that his greatest strength would come from everything they'd said he lacked. His differences weren't flaws to be fixed, but features to be celebrated. The garage office windows glowed late into the night, filled with the light of possibilities once denied but now within reach. The end 2 years had passed like a dream coming true gradually. The garage that once held old bicycles and forgotten boxes now stood empty, a symbol of where everything began. Unity Solutions occupied the 5th floor of a modern glass building in Manchester's city centre. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating desks where talented people worked without fear of being invisible. David Thompson walked through the bright corridors each morning, greeting employees by name. The company had grown to 67 people, each with a story of being overlooked before finding their home here. A young mother who'd been passed over for promotions worked beside a developer who'd been told his accent wasn't professional enough. An elderly programmer who'd been forced into early retirement designed systems alongside fresh graduates who saw wisdom in his experience. Every Friday, the entire team gathered for what they called voice meetings. Everyone from David to the newest intern shared ideas freely. No suggestion was too small, no innovation too bold. The whiteboard covered an entire wall filled with sketches and solutions that came from these sessions. Remember, David always said, the best ideas come from all of us, not just the loudest voices. The company culture thrived on respect and inclusion. Morning meetings included everyone through video calls. Birthdays were celebrated with cakes chosen by teams, not managers. When someone felt unheard, a special listening session was scheduled within 24 hours. Profits doubled every quarter. Big companies like British Airways and Tesco signed contracts. Small businesses wrote thank you letters describing how Unity Solutions saved them from bankruptcy. The software prevented problems before they started, and more importantly, it valued every worker's contribution equally. Meanwhile, across town, dark clouds gathered over Harrison Tech Solutions. The sparkle had faded from their glass offices. Without fresh ideas, projects dragged on endlessly. The creative energy David had once brought seemed to have vanished completely. Client after client left for competitors, citing lack of innovation and outdated approaches. Mr. Harrison paced his corner office, watching another team pack their belongings. His empire, built on taking credit for others' work, was crumbling. New talent wouldn't stay. Old clients wouldn't return. The quarterly reports painted a grim picture with each passing month. One grey Monday morning, David was reviewing the latest client feedback when his phone rang. The number seemed familiar, though he couldn't place it. "Mr. Thompson? This is Mr. James Harrison," the voice said. "I hope I'm not interrupting." David's hand tightened around the phone. He hadn't heard that voice since the day he'd been fired. "How can I help you, Mr. Harrison?" "Well, we need to discuss business opportunities," Harrison said, his tone carefully friendly. "I've been following Unity Solutions' remarkable progress. Your software is quite impressive." David leaned back in his chair, looking out at his team working harmoniously. "Thank you. We're proud of what we've built." "Indeed, you should be," Harrison continued. "Our companies could benefit from collaboration. Perhaps Harrison Tech could purchase your software technology. We're prepared to make a very generous offer." David's heart raced, but not with fear this time. A strange calm settled over him. In that moment, he realized something bigger was happening. This wasn't just about software or money. This was about justice taking its natural course. "Actually," David said, his voice steady and calm, "we've been considering expansion opportunities ourselves. We might be interested in buying your company instead." The silence on the other end stretched long enough for David to hear his own heartbeat. Finally, Harrison cleared his throat. "How much?" "We'll discuss that in person," David replied professionally. "Shall we say tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Your boardroom?" The next afternoon, David entered Harrison Tech's building. The security guard who'd watched him be escorted out 3 years ago looked confused. "Welcome back, Mr. Thompson," he said uncertainly. David smiled kindly. "Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate the courtesy." In the elevator, he remembered the day he'd gone up to be fired, his stomach full of dread. Now, his mind was clear, his purpose certain. The doors opened to reveal the same boardroom where he'd once been dismissed. Mr. Harrison sat at the head of the table, looking older than David remembered. His confidence seemed forced. Present were the same board members, plus some new faces David didn't recognize. David sat in his old chair, the furniture unchanged, but the person transformed. He remembered the hurt, the late nights, the struggle. His team had prepared detailed financial reports and growth projections. He opened his folder calmly. "Gentlemen," David began, "after careful analysis of Harrison Tech's position and Unity Solutions' resources, we're prepared to offer $400 million for Harrison Tech." The room gasped collectively. Coffee cups hovered halfway to lips. One board member dropped his pen. Mr. Harrison's face turned pale, then red, then pale again. That's our current market valuation, a board member stammered. Yes, David nodded. We're offering fair market value. The deal includes keeping all current employees for at least 1 year. We believe everyone deserves a second chance to contribute meaningfully. He looked directly at Mr. Harrison. We'll maintain the Harrison Tech name for client relationships, but implement Unity Solutions management systems. We'll ensure the transition respects both companies' histories. As the board members whispered urgently among themselves, David felt no triumph, only peace. This wasn't revenge. This was transformation. He was buying not just a company, but an opportunity to heal what had been broken. Mr. Harrison finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. When can we begin negotiations? David smiled. Whenever you're ready to discuss creating a workplace where everyone truly fits in. The end 3 months of negotiations followed. Lawyers sat in boardrooms, papers were signed, and finally the deal closed on a crisp autumn morning. David Thompson now owned Harrison Tech Solutions, the company that had fired him exactly 4 years ago. The building looked the same from outside, but inside everything would change. The first day as new owner arrived bright and clear. David arrived early, walking through the familiar halls with new purpose. He asked the staff to gather in the main hall, where previous announcements about layoffs and restructuring had echoed like thunder. "I once sat where you sit," David began, his voice carrying warmth that reached every corner of the room. "I felt invisible. I worked hard but felt unseen. I had ideas but felt unheard." He paused, looking at faces that ranged from anxious to curious. "I want to change that for everyone here." He implemented new policies swiftly but gently. Diverse hiring practices meant talent from all backgrounds got fair chances. Equal opportunities became more than words on paper. Every salary was reviewed. For fairness, every promotion considered based purely on merit. He created a culture committee with volunteers from every department, giving even the newest employee a voice in company direction. A month later, business began picking up. Clients who had left returned, surprised by the fresh energy. New customers came, attracted by stories of transformation. The open-door policy David established meant problems were solved quickly instead of festering in silence. 6 months into his ownership, David received unusual feedback. "We actually look forward to Monday now," one email read. "I suggested a cost-saving measure, and it was implemented immediately," wrote another. The quarterly reports showed steady growth for the first time in 3 years. One afternoon, David found himself walking through the office, greeting people by name. The floor layout remained the same, but the atmosphere had transformed completely. He paused near his old workspace, remembering the countless hours spent there feeling undervalued. Worker named Sarah sat at that exact desk now. She was relatively new to the company, having joined just a few weeks ago. When she spotted David approaching, she turned nervously in her chair. "Mr. Thompson, sir?" Sarah said hesitantly. "I've been wanting to share an idea, but wasn't sure if it was good enough." David stopped, remembering himself years ago with exactly the same hesitation. He smiled warmly and pulled up a chair beside her desk. "Every idea matters here, Sarah. Please share it." Sarah's face lit up as she explained her concept for streamlining the client communication system. Within a week, her idea was being tested. Within a month, it saved the company 15 hours of work weekly. The transformation continued. Harrison Tech Solutions changed from inside out. The break room that once buzzed with office politics became a space where teams mixed freely, sharing lunches and ideas. Meeting rooms that witnessed countless unheard voices now saw genuine collaboration. Young people inspired by David's story started applying to work there. The job advertisements attracted talent who valued character over background, innovation over tradition. The company earned awards for workplace satisfaction and innovation within the first year of David's leadership. Time passed like pages turning in a favorite book. Years later, when David's children grew older, they would often ask about the famous garage office where it all began. 9-year-old Katie was particularly fascinated by the story. "Daddy," she would ask, How did you know you could do it when everyone said no? David would ruffle her hair and say gently, "The best ideas often start in the humblest places. Remember, being different isn't a weakness. It's your superpower." James Jr., now 13, understood the business side better. "Did Mr. Harrison ever apologize?" he asked one evening. David considered this carefully. "Some people apologize with words, some with actions. The important thing is what we do moving forward, not what happened yesterday." Unity Solutions continued growing alongside Harrison Tech. Both companies collaborated on projects, sharing resources and talent. The garage where David started his journey became a small museum, preserved exactly as it was during those early days. New employees visited it during orientation, understanding that great things can begin anywhere. Harrison Tech Solutions became Britain's most diverse tech company. Articles featured David's story in business magazines. Universities invited him to speak to students who felt different, who didn't fit the traditional mold. His message remained consistent. Your difference is your strength. Keep going, even when they say no. 5 years after taking over, David instituted an annual Second Chance Award. It recognized employees who overcame significant challenges to contribute meaningfully. Former firefighter turned programmer, single mother turned lead developer, self-taught designer who never attended university. Their stories decorated the company halls. One final change happened in the company's mission statement. David added one simple line that captured everything. At Harrison Tech Solutions, we don't just hire talent, we honor the journey that shaped it. Because in the end, not fitting in had led David to create a place where everyone fits perfectly. The rejection that once broke him had built the foundation for something better. Every person who walked through those doors now carried the unspoken message, "You belong here, exactly as you are." And that message, more than any software or innovation, became Harrison Tech's greatest achievement, the end.